I remember the cold first. The kind of cold that settles into the pine trees after sunset and makes the forest feel larger than it is. My crew and I had spent the entire day working in the mountains of Arizona, clearing brush and thinning timber. We were exhausted and ready to head home. There were 7 of us packed into the truck as we wound our way back down the dark forest road. Nobody was talking much. We'd all had long days before, but there was something strange about that evening. The woods felt unusually still. Then someone spotted it. At first I thought it was the moon shining through the trees, but as the truck rounded a bend, I realised it wasn't the moon at all. There was a bright object hovering ahead of us among the trees. Everyone in the truck went silent. The object appeared metallic and disc-shaped, suspended in the air perhaps 20 feet above the ground. It glowed with a yellow-white light that illuminated the surrounding forest. Our driver slowed the truck. I remember staring through the windshield trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Nobody said much, we just looked. Then I did something that, even now, people tell me was foolish. I got out. The others shouted after me, but curiosity overwhelmed common sense. I walked towards the object. The closer I got, the stranger it seemed. The light wasn't shining from any obvious source. It looked as though the entire craft was glowing from within. The air felt charged, almost electric. I kept moving forward, maybe 30 feet away, maybe less. I just wanted a better look. Then everything changed. A brilliant beam of light erupted from the craft. I felt an enormous force strike me. It wasn't like being hit by a person or a vehicle. It was as if the air itself had become solid. The next thing I know, I was flying backwards. Then darkness. Complete darkness. When I woke up, I had no idea where I was. The first thing I noticed was the light. Soft, diffused, nothing like the harsh beam I remembered from the forest. I was lying on what felt like a table. For several moments I couldn't move. My mind struggled to piece together what had happened. I expected to see a hospital room. Instead, I found myself in a small enclosed space with curved walls. Everything looked unfamiliar. No windows, no obvious doors. There was no recognisable equipment, so panic began to rise in my chest. I sat up, my heart pounded. I called out, no answer. The room remained silent. Then I noticed figures nearby. At first they appeared human, but something wasn't right. They were shorter than average, with unusually large heads and pale skin. Their eyes seemed larger than normal. They stared at me without expression. Fear exploded through me. I jumped from the table and backed away. I had no idea who or what they were. All I know was that I didn't belong there. Then the figures moved closer. I grabbed an object from nearby and swung it towards them. I wasn't thinking rationally anymore. I was terrified. The beings retreated. I remember feeling both relieved and horrified. If they were afraid of me, what exactly was happening? Where was I? How had I gotten there? And how was I supposed to get home? After that, my memories become fragmented. I recall moving through corridors. I remember seeing rooms unlike anything I'd ever encountered. I remember encountering human-looking individuals who seemed completely calm despite my panic. One of them approached me. He didn't speak, well, at least not verbally. Yet somehow, He seemed intent on reassuring me. I kept demanding answers. None came. Eventually, I was guided into another room. A mask-like device was placed near my face. I fought against it. The last thing I remember is a sensation of dizziness. Then everything faded away. When I woke again, I was outside. The night air hit me immediately. I was lying on the ground. Above me was the familiar Arizona sky. For several moments I simply stared upwards. I couldn't understand what had happened. The memories felt like dreams and impossible. Then I saw the lights in the distance. Civilization, roads, and people. I staggered to my feet. I felt weak, disoriented, and confused. The last thing I remembered clearly was approaching the object in the forest. To me, it seemed only a short time had passed. I would soon learn that wasn't true. 5 days were gone. 5 entire days. My friends had reported me missing. Search parties had looked for me. Many believed I was dead. Others thought the whole thing was a hoax, yet there I was, alive, with no ordinary explanation for where I'd been. The years that followed were almost as difficult as the experience itself. Investigators questioned me. Reporters sought interviews, and skeptics challenged every detail. Believers treated me as proof of extraterrestrial visitation. Neither side could fully explain what happened. Even today, people continue debating the story. Some believe I encountered something beyond our understanding. Others believe there are more conventional explanations. I understand the skepticism. If I had heard the story from someone else, I might have doubted it too. But I can only describe what I remember. A strange craft in the Arizona forest, a blinding flash of light, lost time, and an experience that changed the course of my life forever.
Barney and I were driving home after a vacation in Canada. It was late. The roads were almost empty, and the dark forests of New Hampshire stretched endlessly on either side of us. We had been on the road for hours, and we were eager to get home. The sky was crystal clear. I remember looking out the window at the stars. I've always enjoyed stargazing, and on long drives I often watch the night sky pass overhead. That's why I noticed it first. One star seemed different, brighter and moving. At first, I didn't think much of it. Airplanes were common enough, and distant lights can play tricks on the eyes. But this light wasn't behaving like an airplane. It seemed to change direction. Then it stopped. Then it moved again. I pointed it out to Barney. He glanced up briefly and dismissed it. But as the miles passed, the object remained visible. In fact, it appeared to be getting closer. The further we drove, the more uneasy I became. The object no longer looked like a star. It was clearly something solid. A bright light surrounded it, but there was structure there too. I could make out a shape. Barney eventually pulled over at a roadside area so we could get a better look. He grabbed a pair of binoculars and stepped out of the car. I watched him standing under the night sky. For several minutes he stared upwards, but then something changed. His posture stiffened. When he returned to the car, he looked pale. "What is it?" I asked. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he continued staring out the windshield. Finally, he spoke. "I don't think it's an airplane." There was something in his voice I'd never heard before. Fear. We resumed driving. The object seemed determined to follow us. At times it appeared directly ahead. At others, it moved alongside us. The road wound through isolated stretches of forest where there were no towns, no streetlights, and no other vehicles. Just us. And whatever was above us. Eventually, Barney stopped again. This time, the object appeared much closer. Far closer. Close enough to see details. I watched him step from the car and raise the binoculars once more. He stared upwards for what felt like an eternity. Then he suddenly turned and ran back toward the vehicle. His face was filled with panic. "They're watching us." The words chilled me. Before I could ask what he meant, he started the engine and accelerated down the road. What happened next remains the strangest part of the entire experience. I remember driving. I remember hearing a series of unusual sounds. Buzzing, rhythmic, almost mechanical. The noises seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Then, nothing. A blank space. It's difficult to explain. One moment I was aware of the road. The next, it felt as though time had jumped forward. The sound came again. The strange buzzing. When I looked around, we were much farther along the highway than I remembered. Miles farther. Neither Barney nor I could account for the missing time. Neither of us remembered driving that section of road. It was as if part of the journey had simply vanished. When we finally arrived home, neither of us felt normal. We were exhausted, confused, anxious. The experience lingered in our minds. Over the following days, strange details began to emerge. Our watches had stopped working. Certain items in the car appeared damaged. There were marks on the vehicle we couldn't explain. Most troubling of all were the dreams. Night after night, I found myself reliving scenes that felt intensely real. I saw unfamiliar beings. I saw a strange craft. I saw examinations taking place in brightly lit rooms. The dreams felt more like memories than imagination. According to the memories that later surfaced, the missing time contained events unlike anything I've ever experienced. I remember standing beside the road, the object descending, figures approaching us. Small humanoid beings with large eyes. They seemed calm, almost clinical, not hostile, not friendly, simply focused. I recall being led into a craft. The interior looked unlike any vehicle I had ever seen. Curved walls, soft lighting, no visible controls as I understood them. The beings examined us separately. Measurements were taken, questions were asked. Some seemed to occur without spoken words, as though thoughts themselves were being exchanged. The experience felt less like an encounter and more like an inspection. One memory remained particularly vivid. I remembered being shown a map. The figure holding it seemed eager for me to understand. Lines connected various points. Some were solid, others were dashed. I asked where they came from. The being appeared to explain, though I couldn't fully comprehend the answer. The image stayed with me long after everything else faded. Years later, people would debate what that map represented. A star chart, a symbolic diagram, or simply a product of imagination. I never knew for certain. As time passed, the mystery only deepened. Barney and I struggled with the missing hours. We both knew something unusual had occurred that night. Investigators became interested in our account. Psychologists examined our memories. Researchers questioned every aspect of the story. Some believed us, others didn't. The attention transformed our lives. We became unwilling participants in a debate that continues to this day. Looking back, the thing that troubles me the most isn't what I remember, it's what I don't remember. The gaps, the missing hours, the sensation that part of my life exists just beyond reach. People often ask whether I believe that we encountered extraterrestrials. I can only tell them what happened from my perspective. We saw an object unlike anything we'd ever seen. We experienced missing time, and we carried questions for the rest of our lives. Questions that will never be fully answered. Even now, decades later, when I think about that lonely road beneath the New Hampshire sky, I sometimes find myself staring upward, wondering if what we experienced was real, who was watching us that night, and why.
Like what you heard? Hit subscribe and like the video for more stories every Thursday and Sunday between 1800 and 2000 BST. And remember, curiosity opens doors better left closed.